Welcome back, everyone. Before we dive in, make sure you drop your thoughts and the lessons you took from this story in the comments. And don't forget to like and subscribe. Let's get into it. My name is Darnell. I am 34 years old. And on the night everything shifted, it was a perfectly ordinary Tuesday in Charlotte, North Carolina. Nothing special about it. I had just finished helping with dinner cleanup while my wife, Ayana, sat on the couch scrolling through her phone. It was the same routine we had fallen into for months. I loaded the last plate into the dishwasher, wiped my hands on a towel, and walked over to the living room. I sat down beside her and, without thinking too hard about it, reached out and rested my hand gently on her shoulder the way I had done 1,000 times before. Just simple, casual affection. Husband and wife stuff. Ayana immediately pulled away like my touch burned. She did not even look fully at me at first, just flicked her eyes up and then back to her screen. The expression on her face was one I had never seen directed at me before. Cold, distant, almost disgusted. "Do not touch me," Ayana said, her voice flat and clipped. "I have self-respect." For a few seconds I just sat there, frozen, trying to process her words. Self-respect? In what universe did my hand on my own wife's shoulder clash with self-respect? I was not being pushy. I was not grabbing her. We were married, sitting on our own couch in our own house in a quiet Charlotte neighborhood. The word hung between us like an accusation. What is that supposed to mean? I asked finally, my tone more confused than angry. I needed to hear her say it again, to be sure I had not imagined it. Ayana finally looked up fully, and there was something different in her eyes. Not the familiar warmth I knew, not even irritation, but a kind of icy distance, like I was bothering her at a bus stop instead of sharing a life with her. "It means," she said, enunciating every word like a lecture, "I do not just let people touch me whenever they feel like it. I have standards, Darnell. People. Standards." As if I were some random man at a bar, not her husband of 6 years who knew her favorite snacks, her worst days at work, and the way she liked her coffee. I leaned back, studying her face, searching for some hint of a joke, some softness that would tell me this was a bad attempt at humor. I did not see any of that. This was not about her being tired or having a headache. This felt deliberate, almost rehearsed. Even the way she said self-respect sounded like a weapon pointed straight at mine. "Since when do I fall into the category of people you need to protect yourself from?" I asked quietly. She shrugged one shoulder and went back to her phone like the conversation bored her. "Since always. You just never noticed before." That line hit me like a slap. Apparently, I had been trampling her boundaries for 6 years and was just now being informed. I got up and walked to the kitchen under the pretense of getting a glass of water. My mind was racing the entire time. The refrigerator hum seemed louder, the kitchen lights suddenly harsh. The whole exchange fell off. Not just the rejection, but the language, the tone, the way she sounded so ready with those phrases. Self-respect. Standards. It did not feel spontaneous. It felt like something she had practiced, maybe even discussed with someone else. When I came back, Ayana was texting furiously, her thumbs flying across the screen like she was live reporting a breaking story. "Who are you texting?" I asked, trying to keep my voice neutral. I did not want to sound paranoid, even though that was exactly how I felt. "Just the girls," Ayana said without looking up. "What girls?" I asked. I already had a good idea, but I wanted to hear it. "My friends," she answered vaguely, as if I had asked a ridiculous question. Lately she had been spending a lot of time with her single friends. Maya, who had recently left a long-term boyfriend. Jasmine, who loved giving relationship advice despite having never stayed in one for more than a year. And the two who worried me the most, Erica and Tanika, both dealing with messy divorces and very strong opinions about men. I sat back down, this time putting an entire cushion between us. If she wanted space, she was going to get it. She kept typing for another 10 minutes, occasionally letting out a soft laugh at whatever responses she was getting. Each small laugh felt like salt in a wound I did not even know I had until that night. Then, without a word, Ayana stood up and walked to the bedroom, closing the door behind her. The sound of that door clicking shut felt heavier than usual. I stayed on the couch, staring at the muted television, thinking about that phrase again. I have self-respect. The way she said it implied that me touching my own wife was something beneath her, something unworthy of someone with self-respect. So what did that make me? Did I lack self-respect because I wanted to be physically close to my wife? Or did she lack it for all the times she had enjoyed that closeness before Tuesday night? Either way, the ground had shifted under my feet. From the bedroom, I could hear her voice, muffled but animated, as she talked on the phone. She sounded excited, almost energized, like she could not wait to share what had just happened. That was when it hit me. This did not start tonight. This was a test, a switch in the rules, some new dynamics she was introducing, and I had apparently failed step one by daring to question it. The next morning, the sun coming through the kitchen window felt almost offensive in how normal it made everything look. Ayana came downstairs in her robe, hair wrapped in a silk scarf, and moved around the kitchen like nothing had happened. She poured herself coffee, hummed under her breath, and started talking about her day. There was no mention of self-respect, no acknowledgement of the tension from the night before. "I need you to pick up my dry cleaning today," Ayana said, stirring sugar into her mug. "The navy dress and my work blazers. They close at 6 o'clock, so do not forget." I was buttering toast, listening to her list off tasks like I was a personal assistant she hired, not a partner. "Oh, and can you stop by the bank?" she added, still focused on her phone. "There is that overdraft fee on my account that needs to be taken care of. It is about $40, but it is still annoying." The overdraft had happened because she kept swiping her card without checking her balance, but here it was sliding across the table into my lap as my responsibility. "Also," she continued, checking another notification, "I told Maya we would meet her and her new boyfriend for dinner Friday. That place uptown with the good steaks, you know, the expensive one. She really wants to show him a nice spot. You can make the reservation under your name." She finally looked up at me expectantly, waiting for the usual "sure, no problem." Instead, I set my knife down and turned to look at her fully. "Do not ask me," I said calmly. "I have self-respect." The spoon stopped clinking against the mug. Ayana stared at me like she had misheard. "What did you just say?" "You heard me," I replied. "I have self-respect. I do not just do things whenever people feel like asking." Her mouth opened slightly, then closed. Color rose in her cheeks. "That is completely different," Ayana said quickly. "How?" I asked, genuinely curious. She gestured toward the counter. "Because these are normal requests, practical things that need to get done. And last night was not a normal moment between married people." She set her mug down harder than necessary, liquid sloshing over the rim. "That is not the same thing at all," she insisted. "Is it not?" I asked. "You said you have self-respect, so you do not let people touch you whenever they feel like it." "Well, I have self-respect too, so I do not let people make demands of me whenever they feel like it." "People," she repeated. "I am your wife, Darnell." The irony hung in the air. "Funny," I said quietly. "Last night, I was just people to you." Ayana pushed her chair back abruptly, her robe swirling around her legs as she stood. "This is ridiculous. You are being childish." "No," I said. "I am being consistent. If there are going to be new boundaries about respect in this house, then they apply to both of us." "But I need those things done," Ayana said, her voice sliding into the familiar tone she used when she expected me to simply accept a list of tasks. "And I needed my wife not to treat me like some stranger trying to cop a feel on the street," I replied. She opened her mouth to argue, then closed it, apparently realizing she did not have a neat comeback ready. Instead, she grabbed her coffee and stormed toward the stairs. "This conversation is not over," she called back over her shoulder. "You are right," I said to her, retreating back. "It is just getting started." A few seconds later, I heard the bedroom door slam, followed by the muffled start of her voice on the phone again. If I had a bet, I would have put money on her calling Erica or Tanika, the two who love phrases like "take control" and "set the tone early." I could practically hear the group chat buzzing in the background of her life. But what she did not understand yet was that, for me, this was not some short-lived point I was making. I was not having a tantrum. I was registering a change. If she wanted to redefine what respect looked like in our marriage, then we were going to examine that definition from every side. I finished my breakfast in silence, listening to the faint sound of her voice upstairs, rising and falling in rapid bursts that told me she was relaying every detail, probably including my new favorite phrase. An hour later, Ayana came back downstairs dressed for work, face carefully composed, shoulders squared. She moved with the stiffness of someone who had practiced what they were about to say. She sat across from me at the kitchen table, like we were about to negotiate a contract. Okay, Ayana said. We need to talk about this. I nodded. Then talk. She folded her hands together. What you are doing is not the same as what I did last night. What I said was about personal boundaries and bodily autonomy. What you are doing is just being spiteful. I had to give her credit. It was a well-constructed attempt at framing the argument. So when you establish boundaries, it is about autonomy, I said slowly. When I establish boundaries, it is spite. Yes, she said, as if that were self-evident. Because these are things that have to get done. Practical household responsibilities. An affection between spouses is not practical. I asked. She waved her hand like she was shooing away a fly. That is not what this is about. Then explain to me what it is about, I said, leaning back. Use small words so I can understand. The sarcasm landed. Her jaw tightened. It is about not feeling pressured or obligated to be physical just because we are married, Ayana said. Great, I replied. Then you will understand why I do not feel obligated to be your errand boy just because we are married. That is not, she started, then stopped. You are twisting my words. No, I said. I am using your exact logic. You do not want to feel obligated to do things you do not want to do. Neither do I. Ayana stared at me for a long moment, her eyes searching my face, maybe looking for a crack, an opening she could slide back into. Finally, she exhaled sharply. Fine. I will pick up my own dry cleaning, she said. Do not ask me, I replied calmly. I have self-respect. Her eyes flashed. Stop saying that. What? I asked. You seem to think it was a perfectly reasonable thing to say last night. She pushed her chair back from the table, so hard it scraped loudly against the tile. This is insane, Ayana said. You are acting like a completely different person. No, I answered. I am acting like a person who learned a new vocabulary word. Self-respect. Turns out it is pretty useful. She shook her head, grabbed her purse, and walked toward the door. Just before she stepped out, she turned back. You are going to regret this stubbornness, Ayana said. You cannot run a household like this. We will see, I replied. When the door closed behind her, the house fell quiet. I stood there for a minute, listening to the silence, then glanced at the sink. A few unwashed mugs sat there, and for a second I almost reached for them by habit. Then I stopped myself. If we were really redefining boundaries, I needed to feel what it was like not to immediately pick up every slack. The rest of the week became a strange experiment. Every time Ayana made a request, large or small, I responded with the same phrase. Wednesday evening, she called from work. Can you help me move those heavy boxes from the garage to the attic when I get home? She asked. Do not ask me, I replied evenly. I have self-respect. She went quiet for a second. You cannot be serious. I'm very serious, I said, and ended the call before I could talk myself out of it. Thursday morning, her car made a loud rattling noise in the driveway. My engine sounds weird, Ayana said. Can you drive me to my sister's place, and then take my car to the shop after work? Do not ask me, I said. I have self-respect. Her eyes narrowed. This is not cute anymore, Darnell. Grocery runs, banking, picking up packages, calling the plumber. Every familiar, automatic thing I would usually handle without complaint now came with that same refusal. Every time I said it, Ayana looked a little more thrown, a little more off balance. By Thursday night, she looked less angry and more anxious. I watched her try different strategies. She tried guilt. Marriage is about compromise, Darnell. You are not compromising at all. She tried logic. We both live here. We both benefit from these things getting done. You're just being difficult. She even tried sweetness, her voice softening, fingers brushing my arm the way she used to when she wanted something. Baby, could you please just grab the groceries tonight? I had a long day. I stayed consistent. Do not ask me. I have self-respect. The breaking point came Friday afternoon when Jasmine stopped by. I was in the living room, supposedly watching a game on television, but really I was just sitting there replaying the week in my head. The front door opened, and I heard Jasmine's familiar bright voice. Girl, you will not believe what happened at work today, she said. They went into the kitchen, and even though the television was on, the house was quiet enough that I could hear almost every word. He is being completely unreasonable, Ayana was saying. Like, yes, maybe I was a little harsh Tuesday night, but this is ridiculous. What exactly is he doing? Jasmine asked. I could picture her leaning forward, elbows on the table, eyes wide. Ayana sighed dramatically. Every time I ask him to do anything, he says he has self-respect and refuses, she complained. There's a brief pause, then Jasmine let out a low whistle. That is actually kind of brilliant, Jasmine admitted. I could hear the grudging admiration in her voice. Whose side are you on? Ayana demanded. I'm just saying, Jasmine said. If you're going to establish new rules about respect and boundaries, you cannot get mad when he plays by the same rules. The kitchen went quiet for a moment. When Ayana spoke again, her voice was smaller. But it is different, she insisted, though she sounded less sure. How? Jasmine asked. Because it just is, Ayana said. Even from a living room, I could tell that answer did not convince anyone, including herself. By Saturday morning, the situation had escalated from friendly complaints to a full-scale strategy session. I was in the garage organizing tools, try to calm my thoughts by putting wrenches and screwdrivers back into their proper places. Through the cracked window, I heard voices float in from the backyard. Curious, I eased the garage door up just a few inches and listened. Ayana was on the patio with Erica and Tanika, the two friends I had quietly worried about the most since they started going through their divorces. Erica's voice carried first. You need to get control of this before it gets worse, she was saying, her tone sharp. You cannot let him think this is acceptable. I do not even understand how it got this far, Ayana said. She sounded frustrated and, underneath that, genuinely rattled. It was supposed to be simple. You both said if I established boundaries early, he would respect them and things would improve. And they would have, Tanika said, if you had not let him turn it around on you. Tanika had a way of speaking like everything was a workshop in which she was the lead instructor. So what do I do now? Ayana asked. He keeps using my exact words against me. You make him understand that there is a difference between reasonable requests and what he is doing, Erica replied firmly. Men need clear structure. You cannot let him think he can just opt out of responsibilities because his feelings are hurt. I had to bite the inside of my cheek to keep from laughing out loud. Responsibilities like picking up her dry cleaning were now moral obligations. But what if he does not back down? Ayana asked, and I heard something in her voice I had not heard all week, fear. Then you escalate, Tanika said. Get his family involved. His brother, his parents. Make it clear that his behavior is unacceptable and everyone knows it. Exactly, Erica agreed. Men hate being embarrassed in front of their families. Once he realizes how childish he looks, he will fall in line. There it was. The real plan. Not conversation. Not compromise. Public humiliation as a strategy. I do not know, Ayana said hesitantly. That seems kind of extreme. Extreme is letting your husband walk all over your boundaries. Erica shot back. You tried being nice. You tried being reasonable. Sometimes you have to fight fire with fire. There was a short pause. Then Ayana said, what about what Jasmine said yesterday? About him kind of having a point. Jasmine is still single for a reason, Tanika said dismissively. She does not understand how to manage a relationship long term. You cannot let men think they have equal say in everything, or they will take advantage. Equal say in our own marriage. Imagine that. I let the garage door sink back into place quietly and leaned against the workbench, my jaw clenched. Look, Erica continued outside. You did the right thing by setting boundaries about physical intimacy. That is important. But household responsibilities are not the same thing as personal boundaries. He is being manipulative by pretending they are. That word hit me hard. Manipulative. I was using the exact logic Ayana had thrown at me, but somehow when I applied it, it became manipulation. So what is the plan? Ayana asked. Simple, Tanika said. Tomorrow is Sunday. Leon is coming over for the game, right? And your parents are stopping by for dinner. Ayana confirmed in a quiet voice. Perfect, Tanika continued. That is the opportunity. Opportunity for what? Ayana asked. To make it clear to everyone that he is being unreasonable, Tanika said. Let them see how he responds to simple, everyday requests. When he gives you that self-respect line in front of them, they will shut it down. Fast. And if they do not? Ayana asked. They will, Erica said confidently. No man wants to look like a petty child in front of his family, especially over something as small as picking up dry cleaning or going to the store. I had heard enough. I closed my eyes, took a slow breath, and realized that this whole thing had never been about a single moment on the couch. It was a calculated shift, planned with friends who treated our marriage like a case study. That afternoon, I texted my brother, Leon. "You still coming tomorrow?" I asked. He responded almost immediately. "Of course. I bought snacks already. You good?" I stared at the screen for a second, then decided against sending the long explanation that came to mind. "Yeah," I typed back. "Just be ready for some drama." Leon sent back a laughing emoji and wrote, "I'm always ready." I shook my head and put the phone away. If Ayana and her friends wanted to escalate this to a family-level show, then fine. But it was not going to unfold the way they imagined. Sunday arrived with clear skies and the smell of coffee in the house. Ayana moved around like she was preparing a stage. She cleaned more intensely than usual, straightened cushions that were already straight, wiped countertops that were already clean. She kept checking her phone and glancing at the clock, as if she had a schedule no one else could see. I watched her from the couch, the television tuned to the pregame show. When Leon arrived, he came in with a cooler of beer and a bag of chips, grinning like nothing in the world was wrong. "How is married life treating you?" he asked, dropping onto the opposite end of the couch. "Educational," I said, handing him a beer. He chuckled and popped it open. "That bad?" "Something like that," I replied. Before he could ask more, Ayana came in from the kitchen with a plate of snacks, wings, celery sticks, and dip. She wore a bright smile that made her look like every commercial for a happy home. "Leon, it is so good to see you," she said, setting the plate on the coffee table. "How is work at the construction company?" Leon launched into a story about a difficult client who kept changing her mind about her house renovations. Ayana nodded along, amused, playing the attentive hostess. But from my end of the couch, I could see the tension in her shoulders and the way she kept glancing toward the clock on the wall. At exactly 2:30, just as the pregame show was wrapping up and kickoff was minutes away, Ayana made her move. She stepped between us and the television with a carefully apologetic smile. "Honey," she said in a sweet, practiced tone, "could you run to the store quickly? I forgot to get ingredients for the salad, and my parents will be here in about an hour." It was a well-designed request. Time pressure, family expectations, and the presence of my brother as a witness. Leon paused mid-sip, beer halfway to his mouth. I looked up at her, letting the silence stretch for a heartbeat. "Do not ask me," I said calmly. "I have self-respect." The temperature in the room seemed to drop 20 degrees. Leon's eyes went wide as he looked between us. "I am sorry, what?" Ayana said, her voice climbing in pitch. "You heard me," I repeated. "I have self-respect. I do not just do things whenever people feel like asking." Leon cleared his throat. I can grab the groceries," he offered quickly. "It is no problem." "No," Ayana said sharply, her smile cracking. "This is between me and my husband, who apparently thinks that helping his family is beneath him." I raised an eyebrow. "Helping family," I said slowly. "Interesting choice of words. Tell me, when you said, 'Do not touch me, I have self-respect,' last Tuesday, was that about helping family?" Leon's eyebrow shot up. "Wait, what happened Tuesday?" he asked. Ayana flushed. "That is completely different, and you know it," she snapped. "You are the one who established that having self-respect means not doing things you do not want to do, just because someone else wants you to," I said. "I am simply applying the same principle." "That was about personal boundaries," she insisted. "And this," I said, "is about my personal boundaries too. I do not want to be your errand boy anymore." Leon looked utterly lost, his gaze ping-ponging between us like we were in the middle of a tennis match. The front door opened then, and Ayana's parents walked in carrying flowers and a covered glass dish. Her father held the dish carefully with both hands, while her mother balanced a vase of daisies. They stepped into the living room and stopped, immediately sensing the tension. "Everything all right in here?" her father asked, his eyes moving from Ayana's stiff posture to my folded arms. "Perfect timing," Ayana said, forcing a bright smile that did not reach her eyes. "Maybe you all can talk some sense into your son-in-law. He has decided that helping around the house is beneath his dignity." Her mother set her purse down slowly. "What is going on?" she asked, looking from her daughter to me. "Simple question," I said, before Ayana could launch into whatever speech she had planned. If someone tells you that physical affection in marriage is beneath people with self-respect, do they get to turn around and demand errands and favors without being held to the same standard? Her mother's face tightened. What do you mean, physical affection was beneath? She asked carefully. She turned to Ayana. What did you say to him? Ayana bristled. I just set some boundaries about personal space, she said, and now he's being vindictive about everything else. Boundaries, her father repeated. What kind of boundaries? He folded his arms across his chest, his voice calm but serious. I could see Ayana realizing that her parents were not immediately adopting her narrative. She told me, I said quietly, that touching her was something she would not tolerate because she has self-respect. Her exact words were, do not touch me. I have self-respect. So, I started applying the same standard to her requests. Apparently, that makes me unreasonable. The room went silent. Leon stared at his beer like it contained all the answers. Ayana's parents both looked at their daughter, waiting. You said what? Her mother asked finally, her voice low. It was not like that, Ayana protested. He is making it sound worse than it was. Then what was it like? Her father asked, and there was steel in his tone now. Because that is what you said. Ayana's mouth opened, then closed. For the first time all week, she looked genuinely uncertain. Leon cleared his throat. I have to say, he began slowly, if my wife told me that touching her was beneath someone with self-respect, I would probably react the same way he did. I nodded slightly in his direction. Thank you, I said. At least someone sees how that sounded. Ayana turned to Leon. You do not understand the full situation, she said, her voice tightening. Then explain it, Leon replied simply. Make us understand why your husband is wrong for not wanting to run errands after you told him that touching you was beneath people with self-respect. Ayana looked around the room. 4 faces stared back at her, all waiting quietly. The silence stretched until it became uncomfortable. Finally, her mother spoke. Ayana, she said softly but firmly, I think you owe your husband an apology. For what? Ayana demanded. For setting boundaries? For the way you set them, her mother said. And for trying to manipulate this situation by calling us here to gang up on him. Ayana's face went pale. I did not. How did you? Because I know you, her mother said sadly. And this is Erica written all over it. The same Erica who is on her second divorce because she thinks marriage is a power struggle instead of a partnership. Erica is trying to help me, Ayana said weakly. Erica is trying to make you as unhappy as she is, her father replied bluntly. And it is working. I watched Ayana's shoulders slump, the confident posture from earlier collapsing in on itself. This was not how she had imagined the day going. Her family was not backing her play. They were holding up a mirror. I need some air, Ayana said abruptly, turning toward the back door. I took a step like I was going to follow, but her mother touched my arm lightly. Let her go, she said. She needs to think about this without an audience. We all watched through the window as Ayana walked out into the backyard, phone already in her hand. She paced along the fence line, gesturing as she talked, clearly calling someone for emergency damage control. For the first few minutes, no one inside said anything. The game played quietly on the television, the announcers' voices sounding distant and irrelevant. Finally, her mother sighed. We are sorry about all of this, she said. We raised her better than this. I shook my head. You raised her fine, I answered. She's just been getting some very bad advice lately. From those friends of hers, her father muttered. I never liked that Erica woman. Always stirring up trouble. Leon shifted on the couch. So what are you going to do? He asked me. I watched Ayana through the glass as she shook her head at whoever was on the phone, her free hand pressing against her forehead. Honestly, I said, I do not know. I cannot go back to the way things were before Tuesday. Not after hearing all this. Good, her father said. Do not let her treat you like hired help. Marriage is supposed to be an equal partnership. But, her mother added gently, do not let pride keep you from working things out if she is genuinely willing to change. You two build a life together. It is worth fighting for if both of you are actually in it. I nodded slowly. I hear you, I said. Another 15 minutes passed. Eventually, Ayana ended her call and stood in the middle of the yard for a long moment, shoulders rising and falling with a deep breath. Then she walked back toward the house, her steps slower than before. When she came back inside, Her eyes were red and her makeup was smudged. She looked less like someone preparing for a performance, and more like someone coming back from a hard truth. She sat down at the dining table instead of the couch, like she needed a bit of distance to hold her thoughts together. "I owe you an apology," Ayana said quietly, looking directly at me. "A big one." Leon muted the television. Her parents moved closer, sitting down too, as if they were about to witness a crucial scene in a play. "I have been talking to Erica and Tanika," Ayana continued, "and they convinced me I needed to establish dominance in our relationship." The word dominance hit the room like a drop plate. "They said that if I let you be affectionate whenever you wanted, you would start taking me for granted," Ayana said. "So I decided to test you." "Test me," I repeated slowly. She nodded, tears gathering at the corners of her eyes. "The self-respect line was supposed to make you respect my boundaries and try harder to earn my affection," Ayana admitted. "And then, when you did try harder, I was supposed to make you work for other things too. Keep you on your toes. Keep you chasing." Her mother made a disgusted sound under her breath. "That is not marriage advice," she said. "That is manipulation." "I know that now," Ayana said, wiping her eyes. "When I called Erica just now to tell her what happened, she said this was all your fault for not playing along. She said I should double down and make you choose between me and your family." "And what did you tell her?" I asked. Ayana swallowed. "I told her she was out of her mind," she said. "And I told her not to call me anymore." That surprised me. "I also called Tanika," she continued, "and told her the same thing. I am done with both of them." She looked at me, her voice shaking. "I did not want to lose my marriage over some ridiculous game that was never going to work anyway. I love you, Darnell. I love our life together. I'm sorry I let other people convince me to mess with it." I studied her face for a long moment, looking for any sign that this was just another layer of the game. But what I saw looked real: red eyes, trembling hands, a kind of defeated honesty that did not feel staged. "What about the self-respect thing?" I asked. "I was wrong," she said immediately. "Completely wrong. Touching your wife is not disrespectful. It is ordinary. It is normal. It is part of being married. And using that phrase like a weapon was cruel." "And the errands? The demands?" I asked. "I do not want a servant," Ayana said. "I want a partner. If I need help with something, I will ask nicely, and I will accept that you might say no sometimes, just like I might say no sometimes." Leon exhaled, almost laughing in relief. "So, no more boundary games?" he asked. "No more games at all," Ayana said firmly. "I want my husband back, not someone who feels like he has to walk on eggshells around me or keep score every time he does something." The irony of her using that particular phrase, given the week she had put me through, was not lost on me. But I let it pass. Her mother nodded slowly. "What about your friends?" she asked. "What about them?" Ayana said. "Erica and Tanika are toxic. They're divorced for reasons that finally make sense to me. And I am not taking relationship advice from people who cannot maintain relationships. I am done letting them experiment with my marriage." We talked for another hour, all 5 of us. We walked through the details of what had happened, how it had started, and what needed to change. Ayana admitted there had been resentment building for months. Times when she felt I did not notice her efforts, or times she felt like intimacy had become routine instead of intentional. I admitted there were moments when I had taken her emotional labor for granted, letting her handle the social calendar and birthday gifts while I stuck to bills and repairs. We agreed that none of that justified the stunt she pulled, but understanding the roots of it gave us a place to start. By the time her parents reheated the casserole and we all sat down to eat, the tension in the house had thinned, even if it was not completely gone. After dinner, Leon pulled me aside in the hallway while everyone else cleared plates. "You good?" he asked quietly. "I think so," I said. "Ask me again in a week." He nodded. "For what it is worth," Leon added, "I'm glad you pushed back. If you had just accepted that self-respect nonsense, it would have gotten worse." I clapped a hand on his shoulder. "Thanks for backing me up," I said. "Anytime," he replied. "Just do not make me sit through another family summit like this next Sunday." We both laughed, and for the first time in days, it felt genuine. That night, after everyone had gone home and the house had finally gone quiet, Ayana and I stood in our bedroom in that heavy pause between brushing teeth and turning out the light. She sat down on the edge of the bed and patted the space beside her. Saturday, can I ask you something? Ayana said. Go ahead. I replied. How did you know to use my exact words against me? She asked. How did you know it would work? I thought about it. Honestly, I said, I was just angry at first. But then I realized something. If you thought those words were reasonable in one situation, they should be reasonable in all situations. And when you kept insisting it was different, that was when I knew it was not really about boundaries or self-respect. It was about control. She nodded slowly, staring at her hands. I hate that I put us through this, Ayana said. Hey, I answered, we worked it out. That is what matters. She leaned against me, her head resting on my shoulder, and for the first time in a week, the contact felt natural instead of loaded with unspoken rules. I missed this, she said quietly. Missed what? I asked. Just being normal with each other, she answered. We sat there for a while, not talking, just breathing in the same rhythm. Later, when we finally lay down in bed, she reached for my hand under the covers on her own. I squeezed back, and we let the week go one breath at a time.